Well, for those of you that are not familiar with this truck, I want to give you a complete history of the Dodge. And sorry about the lighting, it's bright, but it is what it is. This is a 2006 Dodge Ram 2500, four-door, four-wheel drive, long bed, diesel, 5.9. It's the last year they made a 5.9 Cummins, or Dodge made any diesels that didn't have any sort of emissions. There's no EGR on it, no DPF, and it came like that. It wasn't deleted or anything, that was the last year. The next year, 2007, you would have had a I believe it's a 5.9 with emissions and then a 6.7 after that. But Mark Carricker owned this truck. That was homemade everything. For those of you who don't know, Mark Carricker passed away back in 2020, I believe it was 2020, from a tumor that started growing on his chin. Tumor got out of hand. He first did cancer treatments, radiation, and went down, and then it came back in full force. And while he was dealing with all that, he owned this truck. Now, Mark has had this truck for a couple of years, had really good luck with it. He put a set of injectors that were 30 over performance injectors, had it tuned. The cylinder head had a problem with it, so he had Holden Brothers Diesel put a cylinder head on it. The performance cylinder head with hardened valve seats, oversized valves, I believe oversized valves maybe, I don't know, it's like a stage 3 performance head, whatever the hell that means. Studs, put it back together, tune it, and I believe it either made 518 horsepower to the rear wheels or 580. We'll just err on the side of caution and say 518. Which, if it makes 518 horsepower at the rear wheels due to drivetrain lost from the torque converter, transmission, and the rear axle, you can add you're going to get robbed about 30% of your power. So the engine's making somewhere around 650, 750 horsepower. Mark had this truck and he had 3 transmissions that he put in it. The first one blew up without any performance work, and then he did some performance work and blew one up. And while he was having his cancer treatments, the input shaft broke on it. And he knew it was a weak point on it. It didn't have an aftermarket torque converter, and it didn't have any aftermarket stuff in transmission. It was just a factory rebuild. So he calls me one day and he says, "Hey, you want to buy my Dodge?" I'm like, "Man, I really don't have the money for it." And he goes, "Well, it's got a snapped input shaft, and I don't want to put another transmission in it. I'm dealing with this cancer stuff, and honestly, I'm probably going to die anyway, and I don't really want the truck. You know, I don't want to sit around being a sore thumb for somebody else. And I know you like it, you're into Dodges, so make me an offer." I didn't have a whole lot of money at the time, but I was like, and I even told him, like, "Hey, even with the broken transmission, that truck's worth, you know, 10, 12,000 as is." He goes, "Yep, don't care how much you got to spare." And I was like, I got about 5 grand. It's sold. So I went down with the trailer on my service truck, picked it up, took it back to my shop, immediately pulled the transmission out of it, and just like Mark had thought, the input shaft was snapped off into torque converter. I disassembled the transmission. I started making phone calls to different part suppliers, Sonax, Precision in New Hampton torque converters, P&H, Don Elfer with dynamic transmission in Oregon or Washington, I can't remember which one. He custom built the valve body for it. I sent the valve body to him, and by the time I got all the parts back together, Twister Transmissions in Oklahoma supplied the rebuild kit for it. So I got it back, started putting the overdrive unit together, doing my measurements, and I could not figure out why the measurements weren't. It was like, you're only supposed to add a certain amount, and I was gonna have to add like 180 thousandths to it for some reason, and I just could not figure it out. Went around, asked some people, asked some transmission shops, and nobody really wanted to deal with it. Nobody wanted to take the time to show me. So the truck sat for quite a while. When I moved to Granbury, I finally found, I had a referral from somebody else. I found a guy in Burleson, called him, said, "Hey, I got the transmission, I'll pay you to put it together." He's like, "Cool, I'll come over and pick it up." He came over, picked it up, and he had it for about four or 5 months. And I wasn't in a huge rush for it or anything, but he finally gets it done, gets it back to me. I install it, I start it up, and it immediately had this clacking sound to it. And I don't know what the clacking sound was, and the transmission couldn't figure it out. Like, it was just not sounding right. It just, at an idle, it just sounded like a rod knocking. Talked to some guys, and they're like, "Oh, it's a triple disc torque converter, you know, with the non-buffered triple disc torque converter. They're just loud and clacky like that." All right, whatever. So started driving this truck last November. Made it till December, and I took a buddy of mine out, gave him a ride in it, and I didn't even goose it, didn't even roll into the throttle or anything, and I was just about to. It's got a little selector knob on it. You can go 1 is stock and 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, different levels of performance. I was about to crank it up to 5 and floor it, and lo and behold, all I did is put my hand on the button and I heard this pop. Like, damn it. Number 6 exhaust push rod popped off the rocker for some reason. I'm like, I don't know what the hell did, know why. I pulled the rocker assembly off, pulled the injector out, swapped the injector with number 1 and the rocker assembly with number 1, readjusted it, started it up, and it worked fine. And I drove the truck up until around April, May of this year. Around, I believe it was May, maybe early June. I drove out to Dallas to meet a buddy of mine. And on the way back, everything was running fine. I give it a little bit of throttle and it goes from overdrive, it kicks it down to 4th or 3rd. And when it did, it flashed. It was, damn it. So I limped it back home, sat for a little bit, went and dropped it off at the transmission shop, and it sat in the transmission shop since June. And those guys are really backed up. Contacted them, again, wasn't in a huge rush. Well, last week, they called me and say, hey, truck's done. $5,400. It needed a brand new triple disc torque converter, a buffered one this time. The aftermarket Sonex intermediate shaft that Sonex provided was bad because it had a bushing gall to it. Due to the guy assembling it, decided to not use the selective spacer washer like the solid steel one. Instead, he found a wave snap ring or a wave spring ring kind of deal, and like he slid it in there and thought it was going to work. And that's what the clacking sound was. It was actually the intermediate shaft going tick 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 tick. I was like, that's cool. So new intermediate shaft. Valve body had a bunch of trash in it. Put another valve, found another valve body, put a shift kit in it. Needed an entire overdrive assembly. The shift drum and everything in overdrive assembly was just completely trashed. And rebuild kit, everything in it being $5,400. I really didn't have the money to get it out. I sort of had the money, but really didn't. I needed to save it, but I have to be out of my shop in Granbury because they're selling the building on the 1st of next month. So I was like, screw it. I'll pay $5,400 and I will get the truck out. I'll have it. I'll have a nice 7-foot bed and I can haul a trailer. I can get all my junk moved from my shop to storage and wherever I'm going to move it to. Yay! Drove the truck last weekend, and lo and behold, yesterday I drive out to go have surgery, and all the way out in Plano, northeast Dallas, I'm in Granbury, which is southwest Fort Worth. It's 100 miles apart. My person I have driving me gets in the truck, starts it, and it just starts clack, 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 clack. So I call a buddy of mine. Buddy of mine runs out with some tools. We pull the valve cover off, thinking it's just a push rod, or hoping it's just a push rod knocked off again, and it is not. Now, number 6 injector is stuck, and it's puking fuel out the entire exhaust. It's just coating everything. I don't think it's cut a hole in the piston. I hope it hasn't, but I won't know until I stick a borescope down into the cylinder once the injector's out and look. I don't have any blow-by, so I don't think it cut a hole in the piston. That does happen with injectors getting stuck. It'll shoot so much pressure fuel constantly, and then it just kind of it's like a pressure washer in mud. It just cuts freaking top of the piston off. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it don't. I hope it didn't happen this time, but I will show you guys what it sounds like. And I also found out that the exhaust manifold's cracked because it's got fuel coming out of it. Check it out. You see all that black stuff, and it's not, you can see that crack right there. That's not turbo lube. Oh my goodness. Let me start it up and I'll show you guys a quick way you can tell if your injector's stuck on a diesel. So, the biggest deal is that you can tell we're puffing out smoke, but it's not a head gasket. No blow by. Yesterday I checked the coolant level and the coolant was completely full. Today, coolant's empty. I think it's got a cracked head. 204,000 miles. So, well, that sucks. because cracked head's a lot more expensive than a freaking injector. I'll show you guys the coolant level because it wasn't like that yesterday. Actually, I'm gonna pull this guy out. Look at it. Oil doesn't look milkshaked. I'll open that up. Now it's just losing coolant. It's not pressurizing the system. I don't know if y'all can tell in there, but anyway, just trust me. There's no coolant in it. That's cool. Show you guys the how much is blowing out the exhaust. So it is definitely oh, the injector's stuck, cylinder head's cracked. I think it might be cracked around the exhaust port. That's why it's not pressurizing, it's just losing coolant. Because the radiator's only got about a half full of coolant. Well, that really sucks. So this year's been an interesting year for me. Started working for a buddy of mine. This last couple months I ended up having to move, so I moved to a house, which is extremely expensive, as a lot of you guys know. That was several $1,000s. The truck was $5,400. Now a cylinder head, which is going to be a couple $1,000s total, with probably at least rebuilding the one injector, if not all the injectors, plus the cylinder head, and a head gasket set, plus the downtime of everything. And I know a lot of you guys, when I complain about this truck, or not complain about it, but when I talk about the problems with it, it's like, hey, sell it. Well, guess what? I can't sell it. I don't have the title. When I bought it from Mark, he gave me the title, gave me a bill of sale. I put it in the filing cabinet at my house. And then I divorced my ex that was at the house, and I didn't live in the house. So guess who somehow misplaced the bill of sale and the title? My ex-wife. She claims she couldn't find it. I don't know where it's at. And we put all the titles and all the vehicle stuff in a folder in the filing cabinet, and it was in there when I left, but I wasn't smart enough to go get it. So again, you know, should have thought about that one. So I can't sell the truck. I don't have the title. It was in Mark's name. I would have to get Mark's widow to deal with the truck and everything, and completely understandably, she's not in the mood and the mindset to deal with anything to do with Mark's estate, things that are in his name, because you know, they had 2 young kids, and she sat by his side the entire time he was getting sick and passed away. So I can understand she doesn't want to deal with anything to do with this truck, and I really don't blame her. I don't think I want to deal with it either. So I'm stuck with a Dodge right now that needs a cylinder head, needs an injector, needs all the stuff. I don't have the title for it, and that pretty much leaves me either I save the money, put it all together, work on the title in the meantime, or sell it for scrap. Which I don't know what I'm going to do. Can't trade it in, can't really sell it for anything that it's worth, so it's probably just going to sit at my buddy Tim's house for a little while. Hopefully he doesn't mind. But anyway, that's the story about the Dodge. I do still have the green service truck, the F350 V10. I just need to put insurance on it again because it's been parked for several months, and it needs a tire, which is, I don't know, $300. So I got to put it together. But anyway, it's been an interesting year. It seems like everything that somebody asked me at church last week how everything's going for you, and I'm like, well, you know, everything's been a blessing. God gives me the fortunate things in my life, and God to test me, and God also gives me the misfortunate things in my life. I don't know if testing is what I'm actually looking for. Trials. God blesses me with fortune, it's all trial. Blesses me with misfortune, and it's still a trial. Something I gotta figure out and go through and figure out what the positive side of it is. But I've been rambling for a while. That's the story of the Dodge. If any of you guys happen to have a 5.9 Cummins cylinder head laying around that you don't need, that's ready to go, let me know, because I need one. Alright guys, hope you liked the video explanation of the Dodge, and We'll see what happens. Thanks for watching. Get out and fix it.